Thank you for joining us today here on Winging It, Unscripted Conversations with the Hot Springs community, broadcasting from National Park College. The intent of this NPC podcast is to have informal conversations with different community members as a way of understanding their work in our region and highlighting their connection with the college. Welcome, listeners. I'm your host, Wade Derden, president of National Park College, and I'm excited to have Jacob Flores, musician extraordinaire and former American Idol contestant, here with me today. Jacob, welcome to the Winging It podcast.
It's good to be here, man. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad you're here and appreciate you taking the time.
I don't know if anyone can see my face, but I started giggling when you said musical extraordinaire. You know? I was like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
I mean, I think you're pretty extraordinary, personally.
Thank you.
I mean, I think Hot Springs benefits a lot from having you in the community.
I love Hot Springs. As a musician, I think it's a perfect match. I love that I grew up here and am able to perform here. So,
yeah,
good place to be.
I actually saw your billboard the other day on the.
Stop.
I was like, look here, man. We're in billboard status now.
You know, that was a 2020. It was right when COVID hit, and it was such an intense time for everybody. And I remember the pricing went down a little bit, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to assume we're going to pick back up. Why not have a billboard? So,
yeah.
And here we are.
Well, COVID was hard for musicians everywhere. I mean, obviously, because performing stopped. And if you're making a living on performing.
Yes. Which was my thing. Yeah. I was juggling librarian, Jacob. I was at the Garland County Library for 13 years, and that shut down. My music shut down for only not even 2 months. So I was actually really fortunate. But that's whenever I started writing and just really starting to try to hone my craft and get better and write music and produce. So I tried to take advantage of that time as best I could.
Yeah. How long have you been playing music?
Oh, man. I would say out of the womb. I was always around music. My dad sings, plays trumpet. My uncles and cousins and everybody sings, plays music. But then I grew up in that kind of shadow. My siblings and I were kind of nervous to play or to sing in front of my dad. Actually, cool story. I remember, because I went to National Park Community College then, and I remember coming up on a Saturday morning to upload my first YouTube video in the computer lab. Which back then, I'm sure the Wi-Fi speeds are better, but it was a whole day planned out. Like I came up at 8 when they opened and just hoping the computer didn't, nothing happened as I was uploading. And that was, I think, whenever I was 19, that was a big milestone getting on YouTube, and letting the world hear me sing or play. But I started playing guitar at I think age 10. That's my number one instrument, I guess.
Right.
And then I dabble in keys and other instrumentation. So, but love music.
So was it when you were 19 when you decided to make a career of it, or were you just kind of experimenting at that time? I mean, when did you decide to make a career of it?
I'm still pinching myself that this is my career. I have always just thought, you know what? Maybe it might be the Aquarius in me. I'm just like, if somebody says I can't do something, I'm like, all right, let's do it. Let's figure out how to do it. Let's make a business plan. I always joke, yes, I'm a musician, but I'm a businessman first.
Right, of course, you have to be.
You have to be. And I remember a producer in Nashville when I was doing my second album, I remember him telling me, never forget that it's the music business. It's not just music, and don't forget that. And so that always stuck with me. But I made up my mind, and I just went full throttle. I entered a singing competition after I transferred from National Park to Henderson. They had Henderson Idol. And I came in second place my junior year, and then my senior year, I was crowned Henderson Idol. And they gave me one of those big cardboard checks, $1,500. Immediately took that and bought my first PA and mic,
good deal.
And then started going to local restaurants and can I play? Can I, and it just kind of took off from there.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
Oh, yeah. Stepping out like that is,
my uncle, to this day, shout out Paul Flores down in Texas. He told me a while back, he was like, Jacob, I can't believe just how brave you were walking in on the border in a mariachi suit, just saying, hey, man, can I play a couple songs, Because my family was all mariachi musicians.
Oh, okay,
so
cool.
He said, man, we always had each other. So some of us were shy, but we went in as a group. The only thing I was missing was the sombrero, but I had the whole thing and presenting myself as let me shoot my shot and see.
Right.
And it kind of took off from there. So
right. Well, that's cool. I actually, I don't know it well, but I've always liked mariachi music, and partly because Los Lobos is one of my favorite bands. And so when they first came out, one of their first albums is all traditional music, and can't remember the exact title, but I love that. I have worn that one.
It was all Spanish.
It was all Spanish.
I love that, and I don't know if you speak Spanish.
I don't.
But the music spoke to you. That's why I think what I do is because of the fact that you don't even have to speak the language. The music caught you and touched your soul, and you became a fan even then. So I love hearing that.
Well, I love music in general.
Yeah.
So I'm going to admit something to you. I have never watched an American Idol or Voice or any of those similar shows. I've never watched a single one. And there's something about those types of shows that creates stress for me.
You and me both. Yeah. Yeah.
Just the chance of failure and the risk that these individuals are taking, putting themselves out there like that, makes me anxious. And so I just can't watch them. Isn't that funny?
Well, imagine being on the show.
I know. Well, that's what I was going to ask you about.
Oh, my gosh. So something I've learned as a performer, one of my music buddies told me this. He does seminars for musicians in Nashville. And he was saying the art of performing, the audience feels everything that you are feeling. And it's almost, you can't even stop it. It's just energy flow. So whenever you get in your head and you start, I hit a wrong chord, or I cracked. And I look down, that audience can feel me doing that, and they immediately feel that in their stomach.
Yep.
So I've really tried to be aware of that. And so even if I mess up or I'm anxious, I still am smiling and bringing it. And that audience, 99% of the time, are like, Jacob, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Like you were, whatever. But that's how it was for me watching that show growing up. We sat on the couch. It was family night. I didn't think I was going to sing or ever audition. Feeling the nerves, feeling the excitement, and then always wondering, like, could I do that one day, So it was full circle getting there, auditioning in Little Rock, and then getting to the top 60 in Austin, 12-hour days of waiting to get shot on camera, and then walking into that room and seeing Jennifer Lopez, Keith Urban, Harry Connick Jr., Ryan Seacrest, I always say I had my security blanket, my guitar with me, so. And then, of course, I was in my full mariachi suit. So it's like I stuck out, and it was one of those things that's like, if you're here, yeah, you're nervous, and I still get nervous this day. And I think performers do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's what you do with those nerves that I live for. Like, it's that moment whenever you have the audience just in the palm of your hand, and you could drop it, or you could lift it and go to, certain heights. So that's how it was for me auditioning. So nervous, yes, but also like, man, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
I know.
And what are you going to do with that?
I know.
So it's like, even think about that, man, it makes my stomach go back to that place. And so great opportunity that was. It was really, really cool.
That is really cool. I always tell people when they're facing a situation like that, make sure you take one moment before you start whatever you're about to do, just to look and to breathe and take it in.
Be present.
Because that's exactly right, to be present. Because this may be the one thing, you know, and that's okay that it's the one thing. But take that moment to remember it.
Be present in that moment.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times, if you're not, in my experience, it will pass you and you will get in your head. And again, it's that energy flow. Keep it going. And I try to get out of my own head and remember that I can't even claim my music as mine. It's like, it's a gift from God. And so it's my job to let that flow. And I'm a waiter. That's the metaphor I like to. I'm a waiter delivering this food, and that's my job. That's it. And then seeing the effects it has on the audience, that's what it's about for me. So I forget what event I was at, but there was another performer right in front of me. There was a lineup of performers. I was closing out the show. I saw the performer going before me, and I could see he was a younger guy, and I saw him kind of going through his mind, what he practiced, everything that was his moment. And I remember I pulled him aside, and I was just like, first of all, you're going to kill it. You're going to do great. Boost him up. And I said, and for me as a performer, as a fellow performer, I'm so curious, like, what is going in through your mind right now? If I'm coming off weird, I'm sorry, but I love that right before you take the stage, what do you do with that moment? You know what I mean? Do you get in your head? Do you freak out? Are you calm? Because I know what that's like. Going out on Magic Springs in front of, hundreds of people, it's what do you do in that moment? So like you said, coming all back to just being present. What I was trying to do was calm him down a little bit, or like bring in that moment, just not that he needed that or what, but I loved bonding with him over that. And then once he told me, yeah, man, I feel good. I said, well, that's great. Now go kill it. Like, and he's like, yeah, man. And then he did. He went out there. So I love those pre-performance moments.
Yeah. I'm someone who performed a lot when I was younger. I don't do that very much anymore.
Stop being bashful. What?
I did. I performed a lot when I was younger, and I had a lot of stage fright. I was always kind of the guy in the band who wrote the songs, and then at one point I became the singer. I don't know how that happened. That transition just kind of happened, and I'd get a lot of stage fright, and so I took a lesson from Bruce Lee, of all people, who got a lot of anxiety before any kind of acting or performances. And so what he did is he had a notebook that he kept with him, and he wrote all of his anxieties and fears in that notebook right before he'd go on stage or whatever it was, and then close it and leave those behind him.
I love that.
And so that's always been what I do.
I love that, man. It doesn't matter what level you're on. Right. Everybody has whatever they have for that moment and how they handle it. So that's fascinating, man. I love that.
I mean, I still do that when I give a speech or something and I know something's coming up. It's still a creative performance.
I tell my son, it doesn't matter his test he's about. It's just whatever. It's like, no, man. You put in the work. We studied. You brought Dad into it too. Or we studied together. You are ready for this.
That's right.
Take a breath and go do your thing. You know what I mean? Right. So yeah, it doesn't matter if it's music or Bruce Lee, Kung Fu. It doesn't,
I know.
Very cool.
So who would you say are the biggest influences on you creatively?
Oh man, creatively, so many. I'm so grateful that I grew up hearing my family play music. That mariachi influence was really big. And that I think comes out, because obviously I try to do super diverse selections of music, different styles. I think my passion always comes out from that mariachi background of just, my dad always saying, if you're going to wear those mariachi tight, shiny pants one day, you have to have passion. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You get out there, you're like a matador, and you take the stage and you own it. So that always sticks in my mind whenever I get up and perform in front of anybody. It's like, own that moment. As far as just like artists, I say for sure my dad. I had his band's CD on repeat growing up with my little CD player. This is how random my music is. Gypsy Kings, Al Green, Temptations, John Mayer, Pink Floyd. I mean, just Eagles.
Oh, they're great.
Man, and again, it's like, I think I always try to find something in any type of genre that I can connect with. So even if it's not my particular type of music or even in the language. So yeah, no, lots of different influences.
Okay, so you've got a couple of records out.
Yes, two.
That's awesome. And so you're doing songwriting too, because I've seen you perform a few times, and I know you're doing some covers in there in those performances, and I assume you're working in some of your own material. Do you see yourself more as a performer first, I guess, or a songwriter now? Or are you changing, or
always evolving? As I get older, I have found that I love to write. And it was funny the other day. We had all this snow, and my mom, I overheard her telling my son on the phone. She's like, "Tell your dad to practice. Tell your dad to take this guitar out, dim the lights, and get his pen and paper out." And just write, because that's when your dad is just most at peace. And so I found myself late at night getting my guitar, my laptop, pen and paper, just writing. And that is whenever I'm at my most happy place, most joyous place. So I always say, like, you know what? I would be the guy in the background. I would be happy to be just a writer. That's a goal of mine, is just to grow old and crusty and dusty in my, cabin in the woods and write music. But then I think part of me would miss, there's no replicating that energy you feel on a stage or in the corner of a restaurant or just something where you're showcasing your performance. I live for that. And it's funny because I'm kind of a naturally introverted. So it's whenever that moment comes, it's like I'm in another dimension, and it's so special.
Right.
And that energy that you create, you're literally creating energy in a room out of nowhere, and it's palpable. You can feel it. I love to perform, but again, I would be happy just sitting on the couch, writing music, pitching it, and hopefully write a hit record. And
right, I hear you.
You know what I mean? I've never had the desire to, quote, make it. I mean, to go touring to...
That's hard life.
It's a hard life, and I've toured a little bit, and you're on the road. It's long days, long nights, and I always joke, I love playing in restaurants, because, I'll get my to-go fajitas and I'll be home by 9, feet up, relaxed. I'm home, I'm in bed by 10:30, whatever, and I love it. I think sometimes, especially as a musician, you always get asked that, well, especially after the American Idol and auditioning for The Voice, soon right after that, and then all the different opportunities that came, people were like, well, what's next? What's next? Are you going to sign? I actually had an opportunity to sign. It was a small independent label as a songwriter and just as one of their in-house artists.
Yep.
But I'm thinking, I get up and perform 6 to sometimes 7 nights a week. Sometimes in the day. I'm actually headed to a nursing home right after this.
Right.
I get to do what I love every day, and actually very blessed to make a living doing it. Mm-hmm. And it's local, so shout out Hot Springs. Love Hot Springs. It's been so good to me. All the people here, it's been such a blessing, and the venues, and getting to work with these people in the community. But I think that I would be happy just doing what I'm doing and also making time to be creative and write. On these snow days, if we get, just off days. That's kind of where my head is now. I'm currently working on my 3rd album, and so I'm excited about that. Kind of honing who I'm becoming as an artist and having fun with it, owning it. We all hit a certain age where it's like, we don't have to be what we think our parents wanted us to be, right, or who we think we were going to be. And it's now just like, you know what? I'm a dad, and I write silly songs sometimes about chocolate or just what, and owning that. I'm just in that age of, it's that being yourself era. So to me right now, I'm having so much fun performing, making these connections in the community. Again, kind of self-proclaimed introvert, but man, I've been blessed to make so many different relationships in the Hot Springs community. When I go to these restaurants, it's like family. People have been seeing me in these different restaurants for over 12 years now. Mm-hmm. And so that to me is special. Right. Because you're making a difference. It's not just about, I want to sell my CDs or, my bobblehead or something. You know what I mean? So I truly love doing that. And I know that's probably, I've battled with, is that settling? Do I not want to be? And I think it comes down to, am I happy?
I think that's right.
Am I at a good place in my life and still grinding? I don't believe in settling. So it's like,
yeah, you're very busy.
I stay busy, and it's about filling that time with things that I love to do. Mm-hmm. And just continuing to hone my craft. So I think that's kind of where I'm at in my career right now.
Well, that's good. I've known a lot of musicians in my time. Some of them have made it.
Yeah.
Played David Letterman. They've made
Wow.
it. They've done the things. And that is a hard life. I've played shows opening for some big names in the long ago, 20 years ago, and see them roll in after 18 hours on the road from Colorado to play in Little Rock on their way home. Yeah. And, they're at the end of the tour. That's tough. It was kind of the point, I think, where I had kind of an opportunity to maybe live that life at one point. I was about 28. But being around it kind of made me think, I might not want to do this.
And again, are you living for yourself? Or are you living for that image of yourself? So like what people see is, Jacob, you're on American Idol. Like, you see the glitz and the glam and David Letterman, you made it to this. And they don't see the behind the scenes, the packing up, the long hours, the grind, and so it's not for everybody. And I would be curious, even the people that have made it, hearing their perspective. The guitarist on my 2nd album, it was during the shutdown of COVID, like right after that, whenever I was recording. And he was Keith Urban's guitarist for like 20 years. Won all these ACMA awards, most down-to-earth guy. So I was just like a sponge picking his brain. And he was talking about a lot of that. Yeah, man, I've learned, for me, it's about my family. That's what is keeping me grounded. And I'll be in New York, and we just got back from Australia, but it's like there's something about being home and just remembering where you came from, and because that life can be,
hard.
It's different from what you just see, the audience or your fans see. It's a lot goes into it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And there's some people who are meant for it, and they're great. And I appreciate that. I realized when I was in my 20s, I was not. And I'm glad I came to that realization and didn't go down that path.
You're exactly where you're supposed to be.
That's right.
And you know what? My fajitas at home at 9:30 after a show, right now, that's where I love to be. So
that's funny. I hear you. I can respect that for sure. So, guitar nerd question for you.
Go for it.
What's your go-to guitar and why?
So I'm not going to have a splashy, cool answer. I play on a Cordoba.
Okay.
And again, that was probably just because it was what my dad played, my uncles, for that Spanish music. It's beautiful. So that was my first kind of guitar. And then I realized when I was starting to play in town, I was like, man, I don't see a lot of classical guitarists or nylon string. So, business plan. That helps me stand out.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I'm going to be doing Spanish music, but also I'll go right into Hotel California, and that's a different sound on a nylon string as opposed to electric or steel. So if you're going to go Cordoba and you're going to go flamenco style nylon, you got to get the Gypsy Kings guitar, right? So that's my baby. I grew up listening to the Gypsy Kings, that flamenco style guitar picking. I don't use a pick, so again, that finger style was perfect for those nylon strings. I'm biased, but I think it's beautiful.
No, I do too. I think
it's a beautiful sound. Anything you can do to stand out in any profession, but specifically music, do it. Mine was wearing a flashy mariachi jacket and playing on nylon strings and doing all different types of music and live looping. But yeah, always try to be unique.
You know, the live looping thing that you do always amazes me because as I've gotten older, I've gotten further away from technology. There was a point when I had all the pedals. I had, I could program my amp. I had all this stuff. And at some point, I just felt overwhelmed. And I performed at the State Fair maybe 4 years ago.
Okay.
With a little Vox. Just a little 10-inch or small little Vox amp. And I walked up and put it on the middle of the stage, and I'm going to plug my Fender Telecaster into it, and I'm going to sing some songs, and the band's going to be great.
The sound guy loved you because he was like, this is simple. Advice given to me a long time ago was always come over and give a hug or shake hands to the sound guy.
That's right.
Because your performance is relying upon, them. And so I always try to do that. But I always try to say, man, because sometimes they're stressed, like, what kind of inputs? Guys, no, it's all good. We're just going to plug right out of this Fishman PA, and you can just see the stress.
Yeah.
So when they saw you come up with that simple rig, simple but effective, I'm sure they had a good time with that.
A lot different than the guy that I used to be with a mandolin and a banjo, an electric guitar, and an acoustic guitar, and I was just one of the 5 guys in the band. I mean, we were a multi-instrumentalist band,
Oh, man, yeah.
All of us were switching instruments, and all of us were singing. Cool. And
it's cool, but
was a
behind the
sound
scenes,
man's nightmare.
It's hard to get the feedback nightmares, right? Yeah. That has taken a lot of practice and honing over the years. I didn't really have a mentor when I was starting out of like, oh, Jacob, turn this down, or get this. You can shape your sound this way. I remember when I first played at Oaklawn, I thought I made it to Letterman. Forget Letterman, I made it at Oaklawn.
You got it at Oaklawn, yeah.
And as soon as I started, oh my gosh, the feedback. And again, how do you not get in your head?
Yeah,
the audience is feeling it. You're tweaking as you go. And then even when I got the sound right, I was in my head. And so I always look back to those times, and that's what shaped me, and you take lessons from those times. But yeah, a lot goes into the sound. So
I know I'm very impressed with how to see you set up, and there's a lot going on here, but you're in complete control.
Oh.
And that is what impresses me. I always think, gosh, makes this look so easy.
My favorite story to tell is I remember working at the library. I'd get off at 5 o'clock, rush across town to El Padrino's, and before I left the library, I would go to the bathroom and pull a Superman and throw on my mariachi suit, clock out, go across town, unload all my equipment, literally like a blur. And I think there was a booth with a family sitting right in front of me. Oh, how you doing? And I'm just going at it. I'm plugging everything in, just not even looking at the time. And as soon as I get up to my mic, the table's leaving, the husband comes over and he drops a 20 in my tip jar. He said, man, I've never seen somebody's fingers move so fast. I was so impressed. Yeah, I'm going to tip you just for that. And I was like, oh, man, well, thank you. So a lot of practice, a lot of breaking down, putting up, breaking down. Yeah. So it's funny you say I look cool, calm, and collected over there. But in my head, the little guy's like, Jacob,
I know,
getting everything right and walking into a venue, you never know where you're going to be. So kind of looking around, making sure you're in a good spot, making sure the speaker's not too close to people. Right. You know what I mean? And then it's showtime. So it's very easy to get in your head. And now I'm at a place where it's almost like a challenge every single night. I forgot my headphones the other night, and I'm like, oh no, this is going to be rough. I'm like old school. I got to listen through and it's a busy restaurant. And I remember thinking, okay, I can be upset for a second, but now it's like, okay, I'm going to bring it even more tonight. Yeah. And my goal is that they had no idea that I forgot my headphones. And sure enough, I mean, I didn't ask every customer that night, but yeah, you just got to wing it, keep going.
Yeah.
You know?
I get it. Maybe that's why the title of this podcast resonates with me, winging it a little bit.
Because
now we
can go to commercial.
Nicely done, Jacob.
Nice segue, yeah.
So I have a question. You're an alumnus of NPC, and now you serve on our foundation board here, which I appreciate.
Super honored to be on there, yes.
And so could you maybe just talk a bit about your experiences with the college?
I'm so indebted to this college. Like right out of high school, Shout out to Hot Springs High School. I remember my senior year, I didn't know what I was going to do. I definitely didn't think I was going to do music. I think at the time I was going to go into sports medicine or physical therapy. But I remember a counselor over the announcements said, "We're giving out scholarships. Come to the office." And I'm like, no, there's no way. So I make my way to the counselor's office and I said, "What is this about?" And she said, "Yeah, you just have to have 2 of the 3 requirements." And I met all 3, and it said tuition paid. And the frugal wasn't even a dad then. And I was like, you know what? This is a good deal. This is a good deal. That's why I decided, I said, man, I can stay at home, save money, work, go to school. So I was here my freshman year, sophomore year, and then transferred to Henderson. But National Park was in my town. I didn't have to travel. All my credits transferred. It was just so wonderful. I was able to get a transfer scholarship to complete my degree at Henderson, but always coming back. I'm so grateful for the memories here. I love that we have a mascot here, the Nighthawk. We didn't have the Nighthawks. I joked we were the Volunteers, back then. But to see the growth of this college and what you're doing and the foundation, it is really cool to be a part of. I still pinch myself, imposter syndrome. Like, what? Me? Little me who was in the library uploading his first YouTube video years ago. Right. To be here now. The college itself, its impact in the community, the resources. Again, I worked at the library, Garland County Library, for years and years, and I remember just always being so proud of the resources we had for the community. The college is no different. And so to have that available, having a son now who, these kids these days, man, we could have a whole podcast on just parenting, but
maybe we should.
Maybe we should have him back. But teaching him that, Eli, man, you can be anything you want. And there are so many resources people just don't know about. And I like to throw National Park in there. It holds a special place in my heart. I truly love it and very grateful for my time here.
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you taking time to speak to me today, Jacob.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your service to the community and your performances, but also thank you for your service to the college. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you all for listening to Winging It. New episodes are released monthly. This is our 4th episode. If you are a new listener, I invite you to go back, listen to some of the previous episodes. Also, if you enjoyed this podcast, please spread the word. Until next time, this is Dr. Wade Derden reminding you that there is a place for you at National Park College.